Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is another edition of the Bluecopa webinars, where we generally discuss about all things finance, finance operations, and finance transformation. Today is a very special day because I have three folks who live and breathe finance transformation. Ever since I've been talking to a few finance leaders and CFOs, I've been hearing them that they're focusing on finance transformation throughout the year. Yet some of them towards the end of the year or later part of the year end up saying that, we did try this, but we weren't successful enough for us to, fully call ourselves as financially transformed, and so on. So are the reasons. So that's when, the idea slipped into our minds that why don't we actually do a session and educate folks on the right ROI of finance transformation and how do you go about measuring it. And that's the inception of the webinar today. And we thought, this is one topic that folks really need to learn, and we should definitely get transformation experts who've been doing this day in, day out for at least 10 plus years. And luckily, joining us today are Anthony and Tejas. So Anthony is a finance transformation expert and the co-founder of FT2OM. He drives a lot of finance transformation projects out of the West. Sits out of New York, and he's been working with a lot of clients lately. And Anthony's, done this. He's built and scaled finance teams at Aon and Hewitt in his past. And welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me, Guru, and I look forward to the discussion.
Amazing. Yeah, look forward to it as well. And Tejas is also joining us from London, UK. Tejas is also a finance expert himself. He's been in this space for more than 2 decades now. And very recently, I just noticed that Tejas is also top budgeting and forecasting voice on LinkedIn. So that goes to show what the amount of credibility he brings to the kind of knowledge that he shares with folks. In his past, Tejas also worked with a lot of organizations across FP&A and finance transformation roles. Cobham Wireless and, a little more organizations to name a few, like, GE Healthcare and Vodafone as another example. So during this stage, Tejas has worked on finance transformation projects, and he's bringing a lot of experiences with him that he's going to share with us, especially on the metrics side. So again, welcome, Tejas. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Guru, for the kind introduction. I'll try and see what value I can add with Anthony and Raghav.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And the third speaker and the moderator of this session is also a very familiar face, Raghava Reddy, who's the co-founder of Bluecopa. Raghava is a finance expert or a finance leader himself. He's been working with organizations and also worked with organizations like Hewlett Packard and Wipro in his past, leading finance teams. Of late, Raghava has taken up the startup journey. He's built and sold his previous startup and has taken up the co-founder journey once again with Bluecopa. And welcome, Raghava. Look forward to having you drive the whole conversation and, imbibe a lot of knowledge into the folks who've joined today.
Thank you so much, Guru, for the kind intro. Thank you so much, Anthony and Tejas, for taking out time. I'm sure it's definitely going to be a lot of realistic, inputs that people can carry forward to their organizations. While we have these kind of sessions, very often one very unique thing that I would say that this panel brings in is that both of them have been operators on finance front for their love of technology, right? Whatever they have done in their organizations in transforming, they really wanted to do it at large scale, came out, started their own companies, are now experts in finance transformation, right? Very unlike a typical consulting, folks. These guys are actual finance leaders who drove finance functions and then started the transformation projects outside because of the love for technology, like I said. So the kind of inputs that they bring in are definitely way different from what a typical consultant would bring in, right? I also had the privilege of talking to one of the customers that Tejas worked with, right, where Tejas would ask you the question that the CFO would ask you much in advance, right? So it makes the life of CFO much easier. Again, it's from the background that Tejas comes from and Anthony comes from. Glad, gentlemen, that you could take out time and join the conversation.
Perfect. So, Raghava, let's do it this way. Given that the topic is also a little huge, right? ROI finance transformation could encompass anything and everything. How about you set a little context on what it is that you're discussing throughout the next 30-40 minutes, and then take the questions forward.
Perfect, Guru. Let's do that.
Yeah.
In fact, even before that, I would just wanted to, spend a minute on even figuring out why are we talking about finance transformation today, right?
Yeah.
There has been finance transformation discussions for the last 1 decade, but what is it different today is one thing that I wanted to bring up. And like you rightly said, even before getting into ROI of, finance transformation, I think we'll need to address what an ROI is firstly, right? How is it tracked? And then, we figure out what is the framework that we can follow to make it much, much simpler for everybody in the organization, right? So to start with, right, while we have been talking about finance transformation for last, 1.5 decades, actual transformation has not happened in finance function versus you think about the transformation that happened in say sales and marketing. The whole spectrum has changed, right? With a lot of digital media coming in, the way marketing and sales was done, say in 2010 versus what people do today, it's way, way different. The skill sets are way different. People would not even believe that the kind of transformation that the industry has seen in 10 years and where we are today, right? Similarly, look at what has happened in HR side of things. Way, way different. It was earlier just the payroll processing, at least 15 years back or 10 years back. It's way, way different today. Same is the case with payment. Same is the case with supply chain, right? But finance function per se has not evolved as much. There were a few point solutions here and there. Even today, the primary tool for finance teams are ERPs. And there are a bunch of point solutions that have come in. So there is long way for finance teams to go from a transformation standpoint. And why are we very optimistic now versus say 5 years back is that one, we could clearly see now a lot of particularly finance leaders reaching out saying they are looking at finance transformation in a very, very positive, objective way, and they want to embark on that journey right away. So there is market information that finance leaders are looking into it. Second clear aspect is that technology has evolved significantly. There were some, drawbacks or I would say shortcomings in the earlier technology aspects, which did not enable a lot of companies build the kind of tools that finance teams wanted. I think we are at a stage where technologically we can build tools that finance teams can use and would use, right? So there are a bunch of more reasons. But from a timing standpoint, while you have been always hearing about finance transformation, I think this is the decade for finance transformation, which I strongly believe in, right? So without any delay, the topic of today, which is ROI in finance transformation, how do you measure, how do you actually ensure ROI is delivered, planned, all of that. Before I even get into it, right, I just want to clear some air around how do you actually measure ROI, right? Before how do you actually deliver, how do you measure? Because if you do not know how you measure it, whatever you plan, it's all immaterial. So let me, start from there. Probably, Anthony, I'll start with you, right? So there could be a lot of financial and non-financial KPIs that companies need to track to figure out to compute even an ROI for any transformation, right? Can you throw some light into what are those KPIs that companies should look at to ensure, there's ROI measured in a correct fashion?
Sure, absolutely, Raghava. So the way that I usually go about this, and when I advise most of my clients is, don't think about what everybody else is using to measure ROI. Think about what makes sense for your organization, right? So tailor-made KPIs. There are a few, in my experience, I think that make the most sense when embarking on a transformation, but I really want that to be kind of the starting point for this discussion thread. Choose and be realistic about how many KPIs you think are going to serve the outcome of your transformation. Don't create a fancy dashboard that has 25 or 30 different KPIs on it. You won't be able to keep track of all of those, right? It's just, number one, it's too many. And number two, it serves as a distraction when you have to look at 25 or 30 different measures. So that being said, I have a couple that I always recommend my clients use. The first one is total cost of ownership. Now, this one kind of straddles the line between financial and non-financial because it does take a look at what are the costs involved in taking on a transformation of a certain size. So there is a financial aspect to it, but there's also a non-financial aspect, which is, hey, what are the opportunity costs that we are embarking on by going forward with this transformation? So when you look at total cost of ownership or TCO, the definition for how companies assess that and how they measure it can be different from industry to industry. For example, if you're a chief information officer or you're a director of IT, your TCO will be a little bit different than what the CFO sees as the TCO for the transformation. So for example, the CIO may say, hey, my total cost of ownership is how much am I investing into hardware and software for this new implementation? And then what else am I using in order to make that implementation a success, right? Am I making use of automation? Am I using artificial intelligence? Those are all things that can, be embedded into TCO. Now, if you talk from the finance perspective, you look at, from the CFO's point of view, he may think of some different measures that may be involved in TCO. For example, what's the opportunity cost for my finance staff being pulled on board to the transformation, helping out with design, doing business analysis for the transformation, and being taken away from their day-to-day responsibilities, right? Good example of that is a staff accountant. So the staff accountant spends 70 or 80% of his or her time taking a look at journal entries, making sure that the month-end close is reconciled. When the transformation is underway, that individual may be nominated to participate in the transformation. And therefore, the mix of activities that they have is far different. So I love TCO because this is such a good one, and it has so many different definitions depending on the point of view and the industry that the company sits in. So that'd be my first
Amazing. No, amazing. Good start. I would also, strongly usually recommend, taking that TCO analysis before you start the whole transformation, right? Just as an extension, Anthony, I want to, bring in Tejas as well here. Tejas, again, you have seen, a lot of finance transformation projects. There are multiple stakeholders involved, right? There would be people from, say, the controllership team, the FP&A team, the data team, the tech team. Everybody would bring in their core competencies. Their KPIs are also very different. Correct? I just wanted to understand your perspective, because the KPIs are different. The way they would track progress at their end would vary from each of these individuals. How should they track their KPIs and ensure that they will all come together when a transformation is looked at an overall level as well, while having the KPIs at each individual stakeholder level as well?
So first of all, I'd like to extend what Anthony just said, right? He just said, like, don't have a dashboard of 25 to 30 KPIs. It won't make sense. I completely agree with that. But also at the same time, you have to remember that you might land up with 25, 30. And I'll explain myself. So the finance transformation is not a single phase approach, right? Like previous to this, we started this call. You were talking about transforming AP, transforming AR, transforming payroll, transforming, your month-end cycle, transforming your reporting, transforming your budgeting. Whatever each element of finance transformation as you're going through may have 5 or 6 KPIs. When you do all of them, you might land up with 25 or 30. And that is fine. That's not a problem. So, I know we are countering exactly what we just said, but you have to take it in context. Everything without context doesn't make sense. So yes, you should have limited number of KPIs. And again, I want to be very clear, for me, ROI is a return on investment. Okay. So I am very clear that a TCO, or total cost of ownership of a transformation, is what you are investing in a transformation. So that to me is the investment leg. So if I was going to go mathematical, that's the denominator in that calculation. The numerator is what is my savings. Okay. So if I did a transformation in the investment of 2 million or 5 million, how to calculate the 5 million, we can come back to. But the point is, for the ROI to work, my denominator is what is my investment, and the numerator is what is my return expected. Okay, they are two different things. Cost of ownership is the denominator in my world. Okay, yes. And I'd say, to the example which Anthony just gave, you are absolutely right. The resource classification, allocation to a transformation project is always a tricky piece. I have always found it very, very political, especially when doing it at a GE Healthcare level or a Vodafone level, because people want to get cost out of their vertical. So they might land up over allocating that, okay, 50% of this guy spent on transformation, while in reality, the guy is spending less than, guy or girl is spending less than 10% of their time. Okay, so it is all very open to conversation. Hence, as a finance professional, I try to stick to what is clearly measurable. So, like again, what Anthony just said, right? Technology is fine, software is fine, AI is fine. Project manager, if I hired a project manager for the project, the person is dedicated to it, that is fine. You see, and then is where your creative finance starts, right? Because then it is 20% of this person's time, but 50% of that person's time and things like that, all questionable. So you have to work as a finance leader, you have to make sure you don't alienate people just because you are not willing to absorb their cost in transformation. I have seen that happen. Okay, where departments will not cooperate on transformation because you said you are not going to take 50% of the cost, so I'm not going to cooperate with this. Sorry, literally, it's left pocket to right pocket. It doesn't matter, right? It is all the same pocket. It's the same company pocket. So that one shouldn't alienate that. Thirdly, it is about then understanding which phase of transformation you are going through and which departments are you helping. Okay. And those departments, for example, if you are helping the marketing team with their marketing spend and you're trying to get that sorted out so that that comes into finance in a correct manner so that your accruals and prepayments start working correctly and everything else. If that is a finance process you're trying to fix, what is in it for the marketing team? Okay, yes, you are making your life easier by accruals and prepayment being straightforward. That's not what a marketing team is interested in. What they are interested in, the KPIs that they would be looking at is how much time have they got to spend to get their expenses approved? How much time does it take for the delays to their supplier? Okay, how quickly can they get their marketing initiatives approved, for example? So all those kind of KPIs, though they are more time sensitive rather than dollar sensitive, if I may, those are KPIs you would work with the marketing team to say, okay, what would make it worth your while? Almost ask them the question, what is in it for you? You tell me, what would make you come on this table and sit with me and talk to me? And trust me, they will give you a earful. When you do this with them, they'll give you a earful. Be man enough to accept it, listen to it, and then take it forward and say, okay, you know what? Fine. To make sure you get at least this amount of savings in your time so that you guys do what you do. This is how the transformation journey will happen. Am I making sense or am I just talking hypothetical? Because sometimes these hypothetical things are a bit tricky to, I don't want to take names because these are things that you've done in life, right? You sit down with people, you sit down with HR and it's okay. How much time does it take you to onboard a person? Okay. How do you transform that into a finance cost center and things like that? And what makes your life easier? That way, then instead of having 3 people in recruiting and onboarding, can you do with 2? Okay, then that's your numerator of your return on investment. Okay, then you could talk about payback period and you could talk about a lot of other things. But the point is to make sure that you get those department heads on board, not as a cost saving exercise, but as a genuine, basically moving forward, better ways of working, better processes, better people experience in terms of employees. That's important. Which is what some finance has got a very bad name with, to be honest, because finance people are always criticized for you don't care about people, you care about the P&L. Whereas that is not the case, right? We are all humans as well. Finance. So we do care.
Yeah, very interesting, right? You brought in a very interesting dichotomy here, right? Well, TCO, I completely agree with Anthony also that you will need to bring in people aspect also when you think about cost. At the same time, I completely agree with you, Tejas, when you say it's subjective, it's political also, right? It's not very effective way of measuring. I think, while it's very important to bring in people also within the TCO, I think having the clear framework initially itself, mapping it, if people can do that in a very accurate fashion, the outcome can be, that much clearer. But I completely agree with you. There is no straight formula here, right? That, hey, this is what you get.
I apologize to interrupt you, but there is no accuracy. So first, as finance people, we have to put that down and say that, oh, this number is going to be super accurate and perfect. It's not. Okay. It's
So
going to
you're
be,
saying
it's going to
forecasting is not 100% accurate, Tejas? I cannot believe it.
It's pragmatic. Okay. It's about
But
give and take. This is where, when you are a senior leader, you learn negotiation skills. Okay. You give some, you get some, you deal your way around the room and you work with it. It is what it is, right? I am somebody who likes to say it out loud. I know people like to shy away from it because it's very politically sensitive, but it is what it is, man. You need to get it done, and
No,
then
I
we see
agree.
what happens, right?
Agree. Because it's end of the day, it's people who really drive the finance transformation. I'm totally aligned, Tejas. In fact, I think it's the right intersection for us to bring the framework that we usually keep talking among ourselves with our customers, right? Which is, any finance transformation generally has three pillars to it. One is people, right? Because end of the day, it's all people. Second is the processes, right? How do you exactly set processes? How do you identify what needs to be transformed? How do you build the roadmap around it and things like that? The third important thing is the tech angle, right? There are 100 odd tools out there. What to pick, what not to pick, short term versus long term, right? What suits you might not suit somebody else, and vice versa, right? How do you pick up the right kind of tech? So I'll probably pick in this particular framework, which is people, process, and technology, because I think if any of these pillars miss, or if any of these pillars are not given enough attention, irrespective of how much ever emphasis you put on the rest of the two pillars, it's going to be a failed project, I would say, correct? So again, let me start with Anthony. Given we've been talking on one of the latest finance transformation projects with Anthony, right? Anthony, here is what it is, right? While I've seen personally also in a lot of customers that or prospects that we talk to, some people might be really good on the functional side, right? They would know end to end of finance, be it accounting, be it FP&A, be it taxation, you name it, they would know it. But somehow when they pick up transformation projects, they would not give the outcome that the organization would want, right? Which makes me very strongly believe that having functional expertise, proving yourself as a great operator in finance function, definitely would not lead you the kind of transformation outcome that you would want from any transformation project. Just wanted to understand, what are those skill sets within finance function that you generally see within people who are very good in finance transformation projects?
Sure. No, this is a great topic, and one that causes, I think, much strife for many organizations, right? And so it's a good time to discuss it. Transformation is not a beach, right? So maybe I'll start off by saying that, even though my background would have you think so. It really is. It's a combination of a lot of hard work from many different areas of the organization. And when folks that are, as Raghava, as you're saying, when there's folks that excel in their, their operational areas, they may not help the transformation succeed later on. And that's primarily because collaboration is that key skill set or characteristic that separates the ones who succeed from the ones who don't. So if you're a good collaborator, if you have good soft skills, I know we like to throw that term around. I know a lot in the finance industry because we're numbers guys, right? We deal with numbers all the time. But soft skills are equally important, if not, in this last decade where transformation has taken a front-facing appeal. I would say that the soft skills are probably even more important now than the hard skills. So when I talk about collaboration, it's not just, being able to facilitate a meeting or have conversations with colleagues that have perspectives that are different than yours. It's a number of other things. It's, Tejas pointed out rightly before, it's negotiation also, taking a hard stance, right? Somebody has an opposite perspective to you. If it's not the right goal for the project, or if it's not going to optimize, the company's processes overall, you have to negotiate hard for your position. Sometimes that means having hard conversations, right? The CFO is really at the crux of a lot of these conversations, and the CFO also needs to have these same soft skills, right? Just as an operator does. Couple of other soft skills that I would briefly mention. Second one would be ability to drive and sustain a vision. I think that's also very important. And again, it's a combination of ability to help others to see the bigger picture, right? By creating that vision where you can get everybody in alignment, not only with the outcome of the transformation, but the reason why you're going on that journey. Because while the outcome is going to be obviously a big success, if it turns out right for the organization, the outcome's not the only important thing here. The journey is just as important. And that's because the journey is the way that you bring, optimization and efficiency into your processes. So you really, I know it sounds a bit corny, but you have to feel it both in the mind and the heart, right? It's got to come from here. If you're not invested in the transformation initiative, you could be the best operator on the planet. You could be a procure to pay, wizard, and know how to manage spend. But if your heart's not in the transformation, you're not going to put in your, 100% effort.
Got it. I think amazing inputs, right? You might be great operator, but if you are soft skills, collaboration side or your negotiation side are not to the mark, I think, then you're not the right probably, this POG for any finance transformation, right? I would also like to, add one thing that Tejas keeps saying, which is transformation is always driven top down, but, delivered bottoms up, right? Tejas, if we can elaborate on it, also how should finance leaders drive the whole transformation within the organization? At the end of the day, it's all people who come together, who buy that there's some value in the transformation and put their heart and soul into the whole transformation, right? How should finance leaders drive it? A few pointers from your end.
So from a transformation perspective, so let's just be very clear. Transformation is not a destination, which is one thing which people consistently get wrong. Okay, they think it's a start date and end date and it is done. It's not. Okay, it's a journey. And if you start looking at it like a journey, then you go further. That's one. Secondly, I completely agree with the way Anthony pointed out and the way you pointed out, Raghav, that basically some of the people who are technical experts, like who are tax experts or IFRS experts, and they know the IFRS accounting standards at the back of their hand. And I also don't know, and I will not even claim to know. Okay. And they are very good at that. Now, there is elements where you leverage their skill set as subject matter experts in a transformation, because you need them for the transformation to succeed. Otherwise, it will not. But they don't need to be the project manager, or they cannot lead the transformation, if that makes sense. A transformation is like, a happy joint family where there are people who do certain roles and that's the value they bring to that table. So in fact, I'm very, very appreciative of all the tech heads which I get in a transformation who are technical experts. Like currently, even the transformation that I'm working with, there are guys who will know. I know all the cost centers by heart. This cost center goes into this, department, and this goes here and this. I'm like, how the hell do you know all this at the back of your hand? You have no life, but that's what they bring to the table, and I respect them for that, and I leverage that from that and make them feel valued throughout the process as you go through that. But they're not the right people to lead it. That Anthony is absolutely right, because they are too focused on their cost center or their IFRS or their tax plan. Okay, that is the reason why more and more it has been recommended that basically finance transformations should either have a formal project manager, okay, which doesn't come from a finance function. So there is no political agenda around it. Or frankly and bluntly, now sorry for a bit of marketing, but use consultants like Anthony or myself or, third party providers simply only because there is no politics. Okay, so when I sit in the stand-up calls of my clients every morning, or my team sits on those stand-up calls, we come from a very simple perspective. This is what I want to deliver. This is where we are. That is the gap. How do I get there? Okay. We have no politics. I am not going to get promoted on this. I am not going to have a year-end review on this. I am not expecting my next big job out of this. I am expecting to deliver this project and get the hell out of here. Okay. That's all I am expecting to do. And therefore, actually, we are better people because we are more independent. And therefore, we can actually take the emotion out. And A, and B, we can then bring experience in. Like Anthony has worked in so many different businesses, so have you, Raghava, so have I. So when I sit down with a client and I start talking to him or her, I'm like, yeah, but have you thought about this? Because down the line, exactly as you introduced me, right? Your CFO asks you, okay, down the line, you will go to the board and you will say this, and then the board is going to ask you this question. Have you prepared about it? Okay, so you're going to show him this fancy new dashboard, but then the board is going to say, yeah, but where is your CPM pipe? Where is your CRM pipeline? Where is your this? Where is your that? That's the obvious next question. So why don't you start prepping for it? And we bring that because we have the experience. It's not because we are experts, but it is because we have got it wrong before. We know how to get it right now. And
That's
therefore,
right.
instead of having our clients make those mistakes, I frankly think of us as consultants in the perspective of we help you not make the mistakes that we have already made. Okay, we are no experts. Okay, anybody trying to say that, oh, I know everything about everything, you don't. I am yet to meet somebody who knows everything about everything. But yes, we bring in our share of experiences, good, bad, and ugly, to then help that organization move further faster. That is why, again, a consultant becomes a consultant. Like there's a phrase, right? Only after 10,000 hours of work or something like that, you can call yourself a consultant, not before that. There is a reason for it. Because then you got it wrong. Like Edison wasn't said, I know 20,000 ways how to not make a light bulb. That's what it is. We know 20,000 ways how to get it wrong. So now we help you get it right. It's not complicated. It's
No, that's very
straightforward.
true. In fact, most of the successful finance transformations that I've seen, people have gotten consultants from outside, right? Irrespective of how good the CFO is, right? How good the tech team is, they typically get an external, consultant to help them both on tech front and functional front. I completely agree with you, Tejas.
I have recently signed up a client, right? They have everything in house. Trust me, they are in fact an IT business themselves, respectfully. So they're damn good at what they do. But the fact is, they need an external pair of eyes with that experience for them to be able to transform themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Very true.
It just
I
fails.
correct. I think, making the least number of mistakes is the key here. That's where, you know, your help would come in.
So
You
this is
can,
key. What you just said, right? Making the least number of mistakes. Again, as finance people, we are unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of finance people I've met are perfectionists. They don't want to make any mistake. You know what? That is not going to happen. Wake up and smell the grass. Okay? You are bound to make something wrong. As long as you have got the skill set to minimize that A and B, then have the know how to go back and fix it. Okay,
true.
those are two elements which us as consultants bring to the table. It's like, okay, fine, this did not work. Okay, maybe let's try this out, which will fix itself out. That's a bloody job.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to cap off on this topic, I mean, I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said, Tejas, because again, I'll go back to my motto: transformation is not a beach. Okay, it's not beautiful. You're going to get some battle scars along the way, and certainly, if you're aiming for perfection, you have to realize that because the journey is expansive and it's wide, and the metrics in which we measure it are, multivariable, it'll be a difficult journey, but it'll be worth it in the end, right? Because ultimately you'll have optimized something in your company that maybe, was not working as efficiently as before. And, like Tejas said, I mean, the three of us, combined, you're looking at, in terms of consulting perspective, you're looking at roughly 50 years of experience. We have the battle scars among the three of us. So, it's good to share, stories and examples where, things have worked out well and where things have not worked out well. That's the whole point of
Absolutely,
transformation.
absolutely. Just as an extension to the point that you mentioned, Anthony, there could be multiple things that can be transformed, right? Companies might have problems with their AR, with their AP, with their, for example, maybe bookkeeping, with their reporting. There could be 100 different things within AR, AP also that people might want to transform. Right? While there are so many things happening, how should finance leaders pick those maybe initial 2, 3, 5, burning areas or use cases to start with? And then how should they build the roadmap? If you can, throw some light from your experience in talking to finance leaders, that will be great.
Sure. Happy to do that. So I'll introduce it the way that I always do when it comes to this part of the conversation, which is the framework that most clients can use, and the one that I continuously push with all of my clients is the ABCs of successful finance transformation. Now, I think both of you have probably seen it at some point. I know I've posted a lot about it in the past year, and really it comes down to 3 points. So it's advocate, build, and create. Advocate stands for, advocating for the strategy and the vision that you would like. And just as Tejas was saying earlier, this really needs to be, done from a top-down approach, right? The vision needs to come from the very top. Typically, this is the CFO. It doesn't always have to be the CFO. There's a role that's come out, I would say, recently within the last decade that contributes a lot to successful transformation initiatives, and that's the role of the finance systems director. I've also published some literature about that. If folks in the audience are interested, feel free to take a look at some of the posts I've written there. But the finance systems director is really the right-hand lieutenant of the CFO. Okay. And they're really going to be responsible for making sure that the vision that the CFO has created, making sure that vision reaches all levels of the organization, right? So they're kind of the executors of the vision. Once you get past advocate, you go to build. And build is really what we've been talking about since the beginning of this conversation, which is selection and implementation of metrics, right? So whether you pick, your top 3 or 4 that you think are going to represent the extent of your transformation, or whether you want to do a work stream by work stream analysis, as Tejas mentioned earlier, you could easily come up with 25 or more. The point is to find a sweet spot that works best for your organization is going to track the outcomes that you want, right? So build the metrics based on the outcomes that you want. The last point is create. And create is probably, even though it's the longest tail of my ABC framework, it is the easiest to implement once you've gotten A and B right. Okay. So if you've advocated for the right vision and you've built the appropriate set of metrics, creating the plan is easy. Okay. So all of us are finance experts. We can drop, information and model stuff in Excel like the back of our hand, right? Creating a plan is just as simple as that. What do you want to achieve? Work backwards from there, and then put your milestones right in between.
Absolutely. Tejas, again, just as an extension, right, there could be areas where you might want to transform immediately, right? Maybe there is some working capital issue that you would want to address right away, versus there could be cases where you might want to take a 6 months down the approach. You clearly see your business growing. You need to bring in, say, accounting automation as an example, or reporting automation as an example. But running 2 projects in parallel would be a nightmare for any finance leader, right? So from your experience, how do you see this playing around, particularly from a process standpoint, right? How do finance leaders think about short-term, transformation projects versus long-term transformation projects?
Okay, I've got 3 thoughts on this. Okay, first, I'm going to bring in the 80-20 rule. Okay, don't fix everything. You cannot and should not fix everything. Okay, the last 20%, if it is not a problem, leave it alone. Don't try to fix it. Look at what is consuming 80% of the time and resource that you have and see if that can be made efficient. Okay, first. Second is the shiny new object syndrome. Okay, don't run after the bloody damn shiny new object. Just because everybody's talking AI, I want to talk AI, I want to talk machine learning. And so now I have to buy AI technology and fit it on my finance function because I want AI in my finance function. That is absolutely textbook wrong way of doing it. So please, for heaven's sakes, don't do that. Okay. Third, okay, I agree with the ABC approach which Anthony just said, but listen. Okay. And I'll say why listening is important, because the gap between the foot soldiers, the people who actually do the day job, right, and the CFO sometimes can be quite big. Okay. And if you don't listen as a CFO or your finance director, or even a systems director, finance systems director, you may land up focusing on the wrong pain points for the business. So yes, while again, as we said previously, transformation is driven from the top, Before starting to drive it in the direction based on your conversations with your team. Okay. Have formal, informal, grapevine conversations, whichever you want. Use different means of communication, but use different means to first find out where you are. Because again, textbook consulting 101 is map where you are, map where you want to be, and then plan the journey. But that means first map where you are. That means listening. Map where you want to be means don't look at a shiny new object. If you just need to walk 3 steps, don't try to make it a 25-step journey. Okay. And then you can make that journey reasonably smoothly because you have listened to people when you have started the strategy. People will more likely walk with you because they're like, you know what? He's spoken to us. He's understood our pain. And he's helped us see why he has prioritized things that he has prioritized and how has he prioritized. And therefore, we'll walk along the journey, right? Leadership is about empowering other people. It's not about
Yes.
proving a point yourself.
100%.
So that is important. So, okay. And then if I come back, so in summary, 80-20, listen and then do a gap analysis and don't do the shiny new object thing, syndrome. If you
Awesome.
take care of these 3 things, your finance transformations is more likely to stick. And because I've at least gone to 3 to 4 of them where it's not stuck. And then we've had to go in and fix it because they're like, but why are people not using such a great system or technology we have bought? And why are people still doing things in Excel? Yeah, because you deployed it wrong. Not complicated. You deployed it how you as a CFO thought it should work, which is fine at your perspective. But you are not the doer. The doer is the guy at the bottom. Talk to the guy. Listen. Listen, 80-20, avoid a shiny new object. And you should be fine.
Amazing inputs there, right? I would also, like to add a couple of points there from the kind of tools that people generally would want, the kind of transformation projects which were successful or bang on to the point that you just mentioned. They just tools which are approved or which are appreciated by the foot soldiers, the word that you used, right? Are the ones which had the maximum uptake in the organization. Also, a lot of times you might want to deploy a tool because some other organization used it, right? Again, every organization is way different. I think when people look at tools, they should look at tools more from an adoption standpoint, which is their particular use case within the organization. Will the finance analyst level people, get adopted to that solution is one. Also, the kind of customization that people can do. Again, like I said, every organization is slightly different. People would want to look at things way differently. Very, product might be really good, but if customization is not something that tools can provide, and given 70% of the work that finance teams do are very ad hoc in nature, it becomes quite challenging for people to adapt to the solution even once you deploy it, right? Obviously, the other 2 points that I wanted to bring in are the scalability aspect of it. Today you might be small, but say a couple of years down the line you might grow massively, right? And if you're spending say 6 months getting a tool which would not be relevant for you say 2 years down the line, again it doesn't make much sense. I think scalability, planning for the scale right upfront is going to be one of the important things. And last but not the least, the short term versus long term, right? While you might have 10 painful points today, you might want to solve only 1 or 2 to start with. But when you bring in a solution, you should also think if the solution can help you eventually in solving most of the other pieces. But today you might not think about it from a deployment standpoint. But if you can have that product vision clear in your head, it makes your life much easier. Otherwise, you'll start implementing more and more tools in the organization for every single use case, which makes it really painful, maybe 1-2 years down the line. I think people who have used a bunch of these techniques in identifying the right kind of tools have done really well from our experience also. I'm pretty sure a lot of interesting inputs a lot of people have already got. I just want to pause here and see, Guru, do you want to bring in a few questions from the audience? In the interest of time, maybe just a couple of them.
Yeah, Raghu, I think some of them are coming in. Let me just look at one of them that has come up here.
So while you see that, Guru, Anthony
Yeah.
and Tejas, for both of you, I just wanted to understand, any one particular use case that you think that you have off late seen picking up, right, in any of the customer discussions that you have been having, will be great to know. From a transformation project, right, be it AR transformation, AP transformation, what is the hot theme in the market is something that I'm really curious to understand.
I'll kind of start off from my perspective. I think the area that's getting the most attention, and therefore, the technology is following, is probably in procure to pay. That's honestly where I see a lot of the focus these days, because a lot of companies, given the economy that we're in, Raghava, it seems that a lot of companies are really concerned about their budgeting. And they're really trying to tighten their purse strings on costs. And so a lot of where I see the transformation efforts taking place is really in the procure to pay area. There's a number of products out there, which, I don't think I need to go on at length about which products are available. That's probably for another discussion. But I do see spend management and spend optimization as a hot topic these days.
Understood. And Tejas, would want to hear from you if you've been seeing any particular theme there. I think Tejas' screen froze. Okay, I think while Tejas joins in, there is one audience question that came in that I would want to ask Anthony.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are the best practices for managing people and teams through finance transformation, right? What are those probably few hacks? While you might have the team, right, there could be 2-3 things like planning properly, right? Having milestones broken, right? Whatever it is. What are those, best practices that you have seen in successful transformation projects versus unsuccessful ones?
Absolutely. Happy to address that. Number one reason for unsuccessful transformations, in my experience, Tejas may have others, but I can tell you resource allocation. And I say that because not in the sense that the resources are not allocated to the appropriate roles. Most companies do a good job of nominating and selecting the right people for the right types of roles in a transformation. But the problem is not being able to backfill those same individuals. I cannot tell you how many times, countless number of projects and contracts that I've been on where the folks that are operating as part of the transformation project team are still performing BAU tasks. So for example, somebody that is an accounting manager and manages the month-end close cycle is still managing the month-end close cycle while participating in the transformation initiative. This is a huge red flag. Anytime that you have folks that are involved in a dual role like this, it's a recipe for disaster because number one, they're going to face burnout very quickly because they're doing their day job on top of what you're requesting them for the transformation. And number two, they're being split in too many places, right? Their effectiveness becomes cut in half because they're having to be in two different areas at the same time. It's a true recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, I have seen far too many clients not properly backfill.
I think this is really good point, right? Most of the transformations, rightly said, people play dual role, right? Somebody closing books might also be involved in transformation. Prioritization becomes very different. The KPIs at which these guys have would be very different, right? And two different areas altogether. I think having that clear demarcation, having dedicated resources, I completely agree with Anthony. Would make a lot of difference here, right? One more, again, interesting question, more from people management standpoint. Tejas, if you can address this, it's on, what are some of the best practices from a collaboration standpoint with multiple stakeholders in the organization, right? Again, this is a very common issue that we see. Somebody who is very good in tech might not understand finance, or somebody who is good in finance might not understand, say, the engineering aspect of it, data aspect of it, There is always that friction saying, I know best compared to, what others would know. Again, they might be best in their particular section of it. But how is the collaboration? How can the collaboration be smooth when you have multiple stakeholders?
So basically, when you have multiple stakeholders, the best thing to do as finance people, if you depend on which role you are playing. So like when I am going into a finance transformation as a consultant, I sit down and say, you know what, hell with the finance transformation. I put that out of the conversation. I say, okay, what is, as a leader in your particular basically vertical, be it marketing, HR, operations, manufacturing, logistics, even warehouse. I have sat down with warehouse managers, trust me, outside a warehouse on their steps, and had a coffee with them and had a conversation. What is your biggest pain? What is that you are finding challenging? Okay, forget the finance people. Talk to them and let them voice themselves, because that way you get, basically, if you go with a preconceived agenda, right? Like each one of us, if I come to you, Raghav or Anthony, with a preconceived notion and say, you know what, going to try and manipulate you to get this out of you, you will figure it out. Okay, you are not silly. So same way, don't assume that the other departments don't understand when you go with a hidden agenda. Actually go with an open mind and deal with each stakeholder with an open mind and be willing to say no. Okay, you listen to everybody, get their feedback. That doesn't mean you have to be a yes man as well. Okay, because the most common feedback or complaint I get is, yes, but you're saying that we can't do everything for everybody. Oh, of course not. But you can give everybody a year. Okay, listen to them, give them a voice, document their concerns. Okay, even right now with one of my biggest clients, what we do, there's my God, some of the requests you get is so fanciful. You're like, what do you think I am, Harry Potter? But you listen. We still listen to it. We document the request and we say, you know what, fine. For you to achieve this, we will need these resources. That is not achievable today. So let's put it on the list and move on. At least that way they feel they are heard. There is a conversation. And then realistically, if you find the resources or the time, do it. That is what it is, essentially. That is how you can actually then keep each stakeholder on board with you. It's about taking the time and the energy to make sure they are with you on the journey when they are going through that, basically, as a process. And sorry, Raghav, on your earlier point when you were talking about, technology, sorry, my head, somehow I had a solid internet issues. It's a very funny conversation because literally I had this discussion on Friday with one of my basically potential clients, right? And he's like, yeah, but I want to solve everything. Okay? No, you can't. Okay? His business is a small to medium sized business. And he's trying to tell me, I want to have an enterprise size solution. I'm like, mate, yes, while you want to have the foresight to be able not have to do transformation every, say, 2 or 3 years. Reality today is, if you are on basically zero today, you'll be on QuickBooks tomorrow, you'll be on Navision, then you'll go to, I don't know, Sage or something, then you'll go to maybe, Dynamics Business Central, and then you'll go to a SAP or a Dynamics or an Oracle. Okay, that's just the journey you will do in your ERP. And that similarly in your other tech stack as well, you will have to have a journey. That is the point which I made previously. Transformation is a journey. It's not a destination. So trying to say that everybody should solve for next 20 years of where they expect their business to be, you cannot. Look at your next 2 to 5 years. Okay. See if what stack you are putting in works for your next 2 to 5 years. As long as it works for that, beyond that, respectfully, you don't know, man. Who knows? Right? Did anybody know COVID was going to come? Ukraine war was going to happen, right? The Middle East crisis is going. I mean, if you knew these things, you'd be a millionaire, zillionaire probably. So, like, really, you can't plan for something which cannot be planned for, essentially. So deal with it. Take 2 or 3 years vision, deliver 2 to 5 years vision, and then in 2 or 5 years, if the tech stack has not grown with your business, or technology also grows, right? These tech providers, including you guys, right, add new functionality, new ability every day. So will you today, if you are fit for a particular size of a business, and tomorrow you may be fit for that size of business, day after tomorrow you may be fit for, I don't know, like a multinational as well. I mean, so it's different. you have to work with what is in front of you for next 2 to 5 years in terms of a tech stack. Beyond that, if you're trying to solve it, I think you're boiling the ocean. And that is literally the advice I gave the client on Friday. I'm like, look, mate, you don't like it, I'm sorry, but this is what it is. You are on Sage today, okay? Are you telling me that for next 20 years you're going to be on Sage? He's like, hopefully not. I'm like, exactly. So then why do you expect me to solve everything else for next 20 years? Right?
True. Very true. And, glad both of you could take out time. I really loved this conversation. Hopefully, we'll have part 2 of this. We are well past the time, so I'll pause here. Thank you so much again, Tejas and Anthony, for your time. Guru, over to you, man.
Thank you, Raghav. Honestly, I think the reason we lost track of time, and this is a really good ROI metric that you should measure for a very successful webinar, is that losing track of time. So that way, I think we've really done our part well. So I think all the folks also really found this useful, but the conversation is still pending. There's more and more to discuss. And just like the topic is right, just like Anthony's background, it's an ocean that we have to continue discussing. I think I'm also coming up with really good one-liners, right, Tejas?
You are learning fast, my friend. Learning fast.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in and also helping us share some information. I think the folks who joined really had a really